All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. And my name is Kevin Hancock, Director of Solutions here at Exostar. And thanks for joining me today for the future of supply chain management, connecting suppliers and customers seamlessly. Before I dive into the presentation and demonstration, just want to cover a few housekeeping details. So today's session is scheduled to last 30 minutes. That does include Q&A. Now, you're going to be muted during today's presentation. However, we didn't receive any questions prior to today's webinar. So if you'd like to, you can submit your questions via chat, and I'll answer those after today's session. In case of an outage, just wait for a minute and try to reconnect. You can either just refresh your screen, or you can use that link you received via email to come back into today's webinar. If at any time you'd like to speak with one of our supply chain experts, or if you have additional questions, you can actually reach out to us a couple of different ways. You can email us, supplychain@exostar.com, or you can come to our website, www.exostar.com. There's a chat feature there on every page, and we'd be more than happy to answer your questions via that channel as well. Now, if one of your questions is, am I going to receive today's slide deck? The answer is yes. As a follow-up to today's session, you'll receive today's presentation as well as a link to a recording of today's session as well. So with that, let me dive into the presentation. So today's session is talking about how can we improve our supply chain management. In particular, for the aerospace and defense industry, how can I gather the information about my supply chain in a seamless manner that leverages a community approach to ensure that the information is both kept current as well as renews as necessary to adhere with the various requirements across the aerospace and defense industry. Now, 68% of procurement leaders cite supply chain disruption as their top concern. One of the ways we can reduce that is to lessen the impact on our supply chain for things that are, if you will, in our control. Let's not come up at the last minute and understand that I can't use a particular supplier because they're not compliant with a particular regulation or a particular requirement that I may have because I have a contract with the Department of Defense that requires me to flow down various requirements to that subcontractor. And so how can I ease that burden and give me visibility across my supply chain on their compliance with various requirements and make sure, again, that that information is kept up to date? In particular, today, we're going to focus on the DFARS flowdowns. These are the Defense Federal Acquisition Regulations that flow down to and across your supply chain because either you have a contract with the Department of Defense or you're a subcontractor to somebody that does. The regulations that you see here are mandatory flow down to subcontractors who have those contracts with those organizations that have contracts with the Department of Defense. In particular, I'm going to focus on those that are around cybersecurity and those that involve contracts where you may be sharing controlled unclassified information across the supply chain and how you have to secure that. If you are doing that, you must protect that information in accordance with NIST 800-171. And those regulations are changing a little bit in the near future as we evolve into the cybersecurity maturity model certification, the CMMC requirements. In those cases, not only do you have to attest that your organization does this, but if you are a particular level within the CMMC requirements, you're going to an attestation from a certified third-party assessment organization that you meet those requirements. Additionally, as NIST 800-171, those are the controls that you need to adhere to if you receive controlled unclassified information. Those regulations are changing. Now, they're not going to change anytime, I'd say, real soon, because in the CMMC requirements, they particularly call out that you need to adhere to NIST 800-171 R2. However, R3 has been completed. It is out there today. It's been published by the National Institute of Standards. So there is a new revision of NIST 800-171. And one of the new controls that are part of that is developing that supply chain risk management plan. You understand the risks across your supply chain, that you develop that program on how you're going to understand that risk, how you're going to review and update that plan, and how you're going to protect your supply chain overall. And hopefully what I'll show you today is one way to help in that overall supply chain risk determination and that management of that those requirements. Now, Exostar has been working on this issue and has been at the forefront of this for quite a while. We've always focused on risk mitigation across the supply chain and secure collaboration with those many players across the supply chain. Many of you know Exostar today because you've come to Exostar to get credentialed and to get access to various supply chain applications that you need in order to work with the large prime contractors out there, the Lockheed Martins, the Boeings, the Raytheons, Rolls-Royces, et cetera of the world. They work oftentimes in Exostar supply chain portals, and to reach those, you need an Exostar credential. Exostar, as part of that credentialing process, has vetted your organization and you as an individual before they provided that, and Exostar manages that trust relationship. So we're mitigating the risk of allowing third parties to access those applications. Those applications typically focus around secure collaboration, right? It's collaboration around the supply chain, collaboration around those different purchase orders, the invoicing process, et cetera, that you go through with those. Now, there are other pure collaboration solutions within the Exostar suite, things like our managed Microsoft 365, where you may be collaborating in a Teams environment with third parties. You may be going to another portal utilizing that Exostar credential to download additional information. You may be working in one of 38 different applications that Lockheed secures behind Exostar. But all of those things are about how we as a supply chain can work together and mitigate the risk in allowing us to work with those third parties. That's leveraged by the Exostar network. Once you've been working across these, you and your company are part of that trusted Exostar network. It consists of 52,000 suppliers and over 215,000 individual users across that. This trusted network works not only, if you will, for the primes out there, it also allows you to leverage that Exostar credential across those different supply chain portals. So you can utilize that for, the Lockheeds, the Raytheons, et cetera of the world. So you only have to get there once or get one credential, and you can utilize that. And the solution I'm going to talk about in just a minute, our supplier management solution, follows somewhat of that same line in that we're going to only require you to register once, provide information once. You can then leverage that with other organizations across the supply chain. And you can make, your information about your cybersecurity compliance requirements available to others and leverage what you've done for others with new contracts or new organizations you may be working with. That's how we fulfill that connect once, collect once, certify once promise across the overall network. Supplier management fits into that secure access module that, as I mentioned before, many of you are utilizing today to get to those sourcing, PO collaboration, and overall collaboration solutions. This works hand in hand with that secure access and master data. It's going to, again, leverage that information that you may have registered when you registered your organization. That's going to start to build up the master data about your organization. This is things like your company name, your DUNS number, your address, or other locations you may have, etc. It's now going to overlay additional information via the supplier management module that we're gathering about cybersecurity risk or other information that folks may want to gather about you before they decide that they want to work with you as a supplier. These requirements, as I mentioned before, are required by the Department of Defense as you securing your supply chain and ensuring that you understand where your organization and your suppliers meet the requirements in order to do business within and across the aerospace industry. The supplier management model is going to allow you to onboard other suppliers faster. It's going to allow you to leverage that information that you already provided. So for example, you may have recently gotten a communication from Lockheed Martin to fill out what's called a cybersecurity risk assessment form, a CCRA form, to provide them your current cybersecurity risk. That's being sent to you, and those communications are being sent to you from the supplier management module. When you go in there and fill out that form and provide that information to Lockheed, you may be notified sometime soon that you also need to provide that same form and that same information to another prime contractor. When you receive that form again from Exostar and our supplier management module, that form is going to be pre-populated with the information you've already provided. That way, all you'll have to do is vet that information, ensure that it's still valid and still the same, and then it'll go and notify that second prime that you've completed your requirements, greatly reducing that time to get onboarded and fulfill the information requirements. If you have to change that form, which is fine, that's obviously right, things change over time. You may have improved in certain areas and you want to let people know that. It's going to notify those other organizations that you provided that form to as well, that you've updated, you've improved, you're in a different state than you were before. This application focuses on cybersecurity first. So, you know, it's got a number of default forms available. Two of those focus around cybersecurity. There's a NIST 800-171 form. There's the CCRA form, which was co-developed with an ND-ISAC working group that included all of these primes to gather basic cybersecurity information that's common across the aerospace and defense industry. There's a conflict minerals form. There's an intake form that gathers additional information just about the organization. But there's also a form editor embedded within the application that allows you to customize and gather additional information that you may need if you're the customer reaching out to your supply chain with this application. Now, oftentimes our customers want to leverage the master data that they gather to improve their overall ERP system and the data within their own master data models. So this does have the ability to integrate with your ERP. It has the capability to scale exponentially. We have organizations with 10,000s of suppliers today utilizing this solution across that. So let me actually show you how this works quickly. So I've got the application running here. So I'm logged in as one of those prime contractors. So if I go into the supplier management dashboard, you see, the number of forms that I currently have out there, or this number of suppliers who are non-compliant, how many have been onboarded, total suppliers, in what state are these various forms that I've sent out, and the average onboarding time, because this is going to improve that overall onboarding time, and we want to be able to show you that value graphically. Now, I'm going to just shrink this down a little bit so we get a better view of it. So if I wanted to find out how a current organization has scored on cybersecurity, because I may want to decide, do I want to work with this particular organization? I can quickly do a search across those organizations. I can pick that organization. I can select from those cyber scores, and I can get how this particular company is doing on NIST 800-171. If I wanted to, I could download the raw scores, the flagged answers, etc., to gather additional information if that's my role in this particular organization. If I wanted to onboard a new supplier, I'm first going to take a look to see if that organization is part of the Exostar network, because that will obviously make it easier. Or if it's not there, I could send the information I need to gather to a new organization as well through this same interface. So say I want to look to see if there's an Acme supplier out there. The more information I give, the better it would be, but maybe I just have a name. So I'm going to search across Exostar to see all the different Acmes. As you see, there are 8 various Acme companies out there, and maybe one of these are the ones I want to reach out to. I'm going to simply click on it. I would click on open, or I would click on invite this existing supplier. And then this would initiate the invitation process. This is a company we're not yet working with, but I could invite this supplier to work with us, and I could send them the necessary information that I need to gather from them. That's going to come in various forms that I want to send them. So as part of this invitation process, I'm going to send them that NIST 800-171 form. I'm going to send them that basic intake form. I can set an approval process around that. So when it comes back to me, maybe legal has to vet that form. Maybe my cyber office or my CISO's office needs to take a look at that before they approve that supplier. I'll talk a little bit about the forms, the insight you get into how folks are working through that as well. So, but oftentimes I have a group of suppliers that I want to bring on at any time. And the way we do that is through campaigns. So as you can see, I've launched a number of different campaigns. To do this, I simply clicked new campaign. I downloaded an Excel template. I filled that out with the names of companies I want, their addresses, etc. I dragged and dropped that form up here. The system then starts to process this. With these 99 forms, I do then have a number of actions that I need to take, because I need to make some determination whether or not this organization is a new organization or an existing organization, and which of those organizations that have a similar name, right? Because we don't want duplicate organizations put into our system. So for example, if I look at the new tech, right, I need to resolve the issue here. So I'm going to take a look at all the various returns that the system gives me to see if this is the new tech I actually want, and is this a new organization or an existing organization within that Exostar community. What I see is that the system is pretty confident that this is a new organization, because the biggest hit I get is about a 6%, or I'm sorry, a 9% confidence rate that it is an existing organization. So in this case, I'm going to have that one sent as a new organization. For MGA research, right? I can look. It also is most likely a new organization. So again, we're just going to keep going down here. We're going to decide which of these are new, which ones are existing. As you see here, Anarutsu, right? I've got Anarutsu Americas. This is the organization I gave it. I see that there's one. Now, they have different IDs and different DUNS numbers, but they have the same address. So this could be, right, the same organization, but maybe this is the Americas organization and this is the corporate organization. So maybe it is two different. It's going to give me that confidence value, and I can choose which of these I want to, because again, we want to deduplicate. We don't want these things to create a duplicate entry if it's not ready. So we get to make that determination. We go through this, and then as part of this, obviously, we're going to take on those when the next action, if you will, that takes place is an invitation is sent to these organizations to work with us. As part of that invitation process, they're going to get various forms sent out to them, and that's when we're going to start to see them return those, and we're going to want to know, kind of what state those forms are in, and we're going to get that being tracked throughout the application. So you see that as part of this, right, I sent a number of campaigns out. We're starting to gather that information. Some of these I just sent out, so these forms are being packaged up and sent to these organizations. You see some that these organizations are partway through, so as they pick these up and they start to fill them out, I'm getting feedback of where they are in the process. Then they're going to come back and we're going to approve these forms, right? And again, right, none are currently in this state, but when they come back and when they were sent out, if you will, it's got to go through different organizations on my side before they get approved to work with my organization. I see that some of these folks have returned the form. If I click on the form, I can, I would be able to view their responses. I would be able to view that form itself. I can download that form and take a look at it, or I can view it here in the web browser. When they receive this, right, they're going to come into a web, their view of this of this system, right? Looks just like this, but it gives them just the forms that they've been sent to fill out. They're going to come into their web browser and they're going to work through, in this case, the NIST 800-171 form. It's asking them each of the different controls. Have you implemented it? You see, they've implemented these controls. They get, a check mark, and then they get that score that you saw in that first view of how they're doing against this. And we get that back as an organization. We get to review, and then we get to determine if whether or not this is an organization we want to work with. And this is our process to verify that our supply chain is compliant with those particular organizations and the regulations, that we're required to meet from the Department of Defense. So we're leveraging that Exostar trusted supplier network to increase the, if you will, that onboarding, or not increase but reduce the onboarding time, because again, if these organizations have provided this information to another organization, when they receive it, they're going to just verify that they still do all those things. If they change it, it's going to notify not only me what their current state is, but if they've returned that form to others, it's going to inform them as well. That master data is going to be updated. If we've integrated that with your ERP or another company's ERP, it's going to be updated there as well. So we want to enhance that overall efficiency gathering this information. The system itself also does things like nag you when a form needs to be recompleted, right? If there is a renewal periodically throughout these forms, a reassessment or a reattestation that you have to give, the system itself will take care of those emails, the initialization of that contact, the those weekly emails that yes, you've got to do it. Now, along with supplier management, once you've approved them, it's typically to get access to a supply chain portal or other systems that you're going to provide to them. Exostar offers this kind of solution really on both the supply side and the demand side. So as many of you work today across Exostar supply chain portals, that's where folks can collaborate around those purchase orders. But we have another application that can also allow you to automate the process of responding to this portal. So you don't have to go into each of the individual applications or each of those individual portals, update spreadsheets, manually turn over to your ERP system and update those quantities, promise dates, grab or get the ASNs and things like that. Ship your promise dates to them, manually update that portal, etc. The demand line application that Exostar has will do that automatically for you. And even better, it'll do that across the various supply chain hubs that Exostar manages and supports, as well as some that are just out there, right, that you go to every day. So we're trying to get rid of that manual process of you updating those things and then just instead pushing that information electronically to you, and it can integrate with your ERP so you can take that information directly into your ERP system as well. Well, everybody, that concludes the formal presentation today. I'm going to stop sharing, but I'm going to look at the chat, see if there are any questions that came in. We'll answer those for the last minute that we're here. I don't see anything over the chat or the QA, but let me give a minute just in case. Nope, nothing's coming in. So everyone, I just want to thank you all for your time and attention today. Thanks for attending. Have a great rest of the week and a great weekend. Take care. Thank you. Bye.